Correction officers are suing the city over inhumane working conditions inside Rikers Island.
Yeah, the lawsuit filed Friday comes on the same day that the new corrections commissioner unveiled a post-pandemic recovery plan. Those reforms may be a little too late. So this morning we are joined by the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, Benny Boscio, to give us some insight really into what is happening inside the city's jails. Good morning to you, Benny. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Dan. Appreciate you having me on.
So let's get into the lawsuit. I was reading it this morning. Claims that the correction officers are forced to work doubles, triples without any warning. But that's not new, right? You and I have spoken about this for quite some time now. What are some of the other issues you're facing?
Yeah, well, we've been sounding the alarm for quite some time. And, you know, no essential workforce consisting of first responders should have to sue the city and state for basic safety and health working environment, you know. Officers are working 25 plus hours without meal breaks, food, water, medical attention is being refused. I had a correction officer appendix burst after he repeatedly asked for a medical emergency. It took 30 minutes to relieve the officer. We are working in very inhumane working conditions, and we're trying to get the court to compel the Department of Corrections to basically follow basic labor laws.
Yeah.
So, Benny, has the union been able to actually sit down and address these conditions with the new DOC commissioner?
Yes, we have sat down with the new DOC commissioner. He sounds like he wants to help us. Many of the issues that we brought to his attention, we've been sounding off for years now. And he actually put out a new day plan based on the things that we spoke to him about.
Yeah. You know, I want to just, in one of a recent interview that he did, Commissioner Schiraldi, that is, he actually said, I'm looking at the long-standing set of challenges that you are facing, and I agree with COBA, and my job is to address them. So it sounds like he wants to work with you, but at the same time, when you talk about double and triple shifts, he goes on to talk about the fact that there are many shifts listed as AWOL, right, which is like you guys are not showing up for actual shifts, calling out sick, which has led to a vicious cycle prompted by low morale. So I want to actually play a little bit of what he has to say about that and then get your take.
Lower morale is, the more people don't come to work, the more people don't come to work, the more violence there is, and greater numbers of use of force, and then greater discipline for people, and the more of those things there are, the more people don't come to work.
When you look at the numbers, Benny, how is the union addressing the fact that last month there were more than 2,700 instances of COs not showing up for their shifts? Does that contribute to those inhumane conditions that you're speaking of?
Well, I mean, look, we're being assaulted at record numbers, overworked, 25 plus hours, you know, just about every other day, you know, and that, to deal with that on a regular basis and not expect the sick rate and the deplorable conditions that we work under, you know, the reality is that the people that have been AWOL for the last 8 years is the Department of Corrections leadership and the elected officials that we've been sounding the alarm to, and they are not forcing the Department of Corrections to basically act on everything we've been
understood.
yelling.
I just to push back just a second, because he said that he actually said there is the proper number of staff to handle the jail population, but because of sick outs, not because they're overworked, because of sick outs, that is causing other correction officers to have to pick up the slack.
Well, Dan, they haven't hired correction officers in over 2.5 years. Over 1,000 correction officers resigned since January of 2019. We are dealing with a more violent inmate today. Our female officers are getting sexually assaulted and harassed. And there is a high number of officers that are healing from broken bones, you know, puncture wounds. Like, there are no consequences for inmates, it seems, anymore. And we're the ones that are getting injured at a high rate. So yes, you're gonna have a sick rate out. When you're housing inmates by gang affiliation and we're outnumbered to begin with, and we're in a disadvantage, you put us in more of a disadvantage now by doing that. And we're threatened, assaulted. So, you know, the city of New York and the agency has to reimagine staffing levels, because we are gonna have officers that are, recovering from major injuries.
And Benny, you're right, because it all does seem to be a domino effect. Just this year alone, we've seen 4 inmates manage to walk out of Rikers, mistakenly released. What do you think is the source of that if it's not having more people and more staff there? What do you think is the remedy to that?
Well, the remedy is we need more correction officers. We have the real estate to spread out the population, to have less inmates in each housing area and more correction officers so we could have a safe working environment. You know, officers are being assaulted on the regular, and something has to be done. I mean, I've testified at city council hearings. I've had major meetings with everybody that listens, and nobody's doing anything to help us.
Yeah, you know, I've covered those assaults for quite some time, Benny, here on PIX11. The commissioner wants to hire 400 additional officers as part of his plan. Real quick, because we're almost out of time, here is some of what he actually says he wants his pandemic recovery plan to look like, but I want to specifically zero in on that 400 number. Real quick before we go, is that enough?
No, it's not. I asked for 2,000 correction officers. That's what we need to effectively do this job, because they have to have anticipation of people being out because of the assaults that are through the roof.
Right.
We're going to have correction officers out.
Okay.
And we need 2,000 correction officers working 30+ hours a day. How can we physically defend ourselves, physically defend inmates? Inmate services are not being provided to them because we don't have the staff to do it.
Understood, Benny. Okay, we're simply out of time here, but keep us posted on the lawsuit. You know, we'll cover it every step of the way. Appreciate you joining us this morning, Benny.
Thank you both for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course.